Hello and welcome to another episode of Ashes of the Imperium. My name is Dan, and once again, I'm joined by the lovely Steve. How are you, Steve?
Yes, I'm good, mate. It's a Friday in our
Indeed.
timeline.
It is a Friday in this current realm, this current iteration of Ashes of the Imperium. And today we are talking all about the latest Arks of Omen book, that which is titled Farsight. Bum, bum,
Yes.
bum.
Yes.
Now, a slight apology to make, because this one will be hot on the heels of our Vashtorr coverage. So both episodes will be released almost back to back, because we didn't get the Vashtorr one out in time through some various work commitments. I wasn't able to edit it in time. So you'll get two episodes for the price of one this weekend.
Bonus. Charge
a
extra.
Billy bonus. Oh, absolutely. Double the cost of nothing. So this is, I guess, coming towards the end of the Arks of Omen saga, because we know what the next one's going to be, don't we?
We do, and we know it's the last one. So So we've had some releases. I think we're going to have a special release preview show planned.
We will, yeah, absolutely. We will be talking about the Adepticon reveals at a later date. And wow, just, immediate reaction was just, I was absolutely blown away by it. We don't want to gush too excitedly on this episode, because that'll be the point for the next one. But we do know that the next episode of Arks of Omen is going to be The Lion. It's going to feature the return of the Dark Angel of Primarch, Lionel Johnson. What a stunning model. What an exciting time in the lore of 40k. And overall, yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So this is going to continue Vashtorr and our tale for searching for the keys. But we do take a little bit of a side trip here, don't we?
Yeah, bit of a weird one. I feel like Farsight, not necessarily shoehorned into the the narrative, but yeah, I suppose we've had three big chaos baddies, and then we've just got a book about Farsight randomly. It's kind of like you know those episodes of Lost where it's just a bit of backstory and like a side story, and you're like, how is this relevant to the main plot?
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
It is Arks light. It's like a lot less calories of Ark in this one, and I mean, I think it's interesting that there's some lovely nuggets scattered throughout here, and some really interesting insights. Some of that might be in the fact that I am not. I don't know all the lore inside and out, so there's some things that pop up that I kind of go, "Oh, I didn't know that." But again, I think what these books have been able to do through the story side of it is give us kind of the views of the protagonists through their eyes. Whether it is in this case Farsight, or we get to see what some of the Orks are doing. Although that's mainly let's have a scrap. But that's pretty much as intellectual as they get, though, really, isn't it, Dan?
Well, I don't know. I quite like the idea of the telefragger gun. That was quite an exciting thing. Basically, like weaponized warp technology. Enjoyed that for the Orks. Was expecting to see Snickrot in this book as well. Amazing new model, released at the same time as Farsight in the boarding patrol box. And it's not about Snickrot at all. It starts talking off about Nazdreg and the bad moons, and I'm thinking, at some point Snickrot's going to arrive. He's going to stealth his way in, and he just doesn't. So maybe he's going to appear in a future book, or maybe it's just a cool new model. It's just out, and he's not really involved in the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a galaxy-wide campaign where these Bell fleets are darting about all over the place, then I guess we can't cover every single eventuality. I think it kicks off in an interesting way.
It opens with Farsight having visions, doesn't it?
Yeah,
of him as effectively falling to chaos and being like a Khorne, a servant of Khorne.
It's a nice bit of foreshadowing of what's going to happen. I think it does quite nicely. Obviously, we get a sense of his character and his motives, and it does definitely seem it kicks off with a bit of a side fight between him and some Orks, and it all goes a bit sideways quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got Farsight scrapping with the Orks. He sees some visions and is a bit kind of concerned by them. Then it kind of introduces us to some Alpha Legion operatives who are hiding amongst the Death Watch. They're in cahoots with Vashtorr, and they're hunting down the key fragment. So Vashtorr instructs them to go and find the key fragment, which is on the planet. And they basically join the battle just as Farsight is having this kind of big showdown with Nazdreg, who is the big war boss of the Bad Moons. And that sort of is around this kind of like Ork doomsday tech, the telefragger gun, which is kind of weaponized warp technology. And the Orks are just building these huge telefragger guns. And Farsight is kind of launching this decapitation strike to destroy these weapons of mass destruction. So in a typically 40k-esque fashion, you've got several large factions converging on a single point with various different ends, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah, it's a battle rich, isn't it? And what we get here. I mean, one of the things. So you say about the Alpha Legion hiding out inside the Deathwatch ship. I mean, it's quite nicely described how they've kind of, in a lower deck area, they've kind of woven this almost like a nest of talismans and stuff, so that they can kind of communicate with Vashtorr without being detected on board the ship. So that was quite nice. I quite liked that. It was kind of a little bit more personal rather than the big sweeping battle cruiser fights that we get, or we have got with this series. So I think that was interesting. I think the other thing is as well, and again, you probably know better than me, Dan, but we definitely see before the Alpha Legion reveal themselves that the Death Watch are happy to kind of sit and observe the ongoing battles, and that they've obviously got this sort of stealth technology.
Yeah, and should be pointed at where did they get that stealth technology from, Steve?
Yes, that's what I want to know.
They stole it from the T'au, by the sounds of it.
Yes.
So dabbling in Xenos technology. I'm not sure what the Inquisition would say about that.
Yeah, so that was a nice touch. I think when you get that sort of unexpected kind of insight into what is possible rather than what you should be doing, and I guess that goes for the whole kind of elite, best of the best with honors and all that they can have a little bit of leeway with what they do.
The Deathwatch ship is the Bleak Missive, and the ship's crenellated hull was hidden from the sensors of the T'au. It was hidden from the sensors of the T'au warships by a retro-engineered adaptation of their own stealth field technology. Small versions of these same stealth shroud generators conceal a swarm of advanced servo skulls, which even now observe the dying moments of the battle on Werborg. But yeah, it is interesting how the Deathwatch work. I've always liked the idea of a Deathwatch army, just for the sort of the variety of different, being a bit of a hobby butterfly, the variety of different models that you can paint as a result of it. Yeah. But when it comes to the rules, I think the complexity of the Deathwatch rules always put me off. I like the idea of it, but perhaps not the army itself, rules wise.
Yeah, definitely suited for kind of boarding action, combat patrol, that kind of smaller.
Absolutely.
If you've got 2,000 points of those, and the options are just endless, although maybe that would get easier.
If only there was a streamlined version of the game coming out, Steve.
What, with everything on a one data sheet? So you just
stop it. This is the next episode.
Okay, all right. Too excited.
So let's fast forward back onto the kind of planet where the T'au and the Orks are having that scrap. One of my favorite moments is basically Farsight and his 8, the crew. The Hateful Eight are cruising into the center of the Orks camp to kind of destroy these weapons, and they've lured Nazdreg and his war party out into the kind of wider battle. And Nazdreg realizes that he's been had, and realizes that actually perhaps Farsight isn't where the battle's thickest. He's back at base hunting down these telefragger guns. So he. It basically uses like a warp jump device to jump his battle wagon back, and just the description is hilarious. So it is now the warlord, i.e. Nazdreg, proved once again why he was known for his cunning as much as his brawn and wealth. Having tired of being dodged and shot from afar by the T'au, Nasdaq had commanded his best mech boys to fit colossal shock jump projectors to his battle fortress that could propel him into the heart of any fight in an eye blink. At his bellowed command, the generators were activated and their destination plotted. Spinning ever faster amidst leaping arcs of warp energy, the projectors ripped open a glowing green portal into which Nasdaq's driver accelerated with a howl of glee. An instant later, a huge green rent split in the air 20 feet above the floor of the mech's workshop. Tracks spinning, and with green-skinned passengers hanging on for dear life, the armoured bulk of the Git Crusher erupted from the portal and dropped to the ground with a deafening crash. I love it.
As daft as anything Orkish should be, and it's absolutely great. So, yeah. I think the thing is, there's a couple of mentions as well as to the kind of T'au looking at some of these weapon systems that the Orks have, and as much as they mock them in a way and that they are so ramshackle and rubbish, they still do respect them, because it may not be smart, it may not be clever, but it does actually produce a lot of DACA and a lot of damage. So
yeah. Do you remember the Forge World Orc Battle Fortress model?
Yeah.
That was a big beast.
Yeah,
that's a lot of resin.
Yeah, there were some amazing kits. Always had a hankering to do the grot tanks.
Oh yeah, I always come back to Orks as a great idea, just because they are so hilariously silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big fan. Big fan of the Orks.
It's always that thing, isn't it? You know, the sillier it is, the more serious you need to take it. So that you just need to be absolutely consistent with your stupidity, and it'll be brilliant.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think for me it'd be choosing, much like anything, it'd be choosing a clan to go for. You know, I liked the idea of my my Snakebites clan, but then a Bad Moons clan with like loads of like big battle wagons and vehicles, or maybe that with vehicles that'd be Evil Sons. Who knows? There's just so much to choose from. Anyway, back to the Arks of Omen. What happens then? They're having a big scrap. They destroy the teleporters, or the telefraggers rather. Farsight then kind of gets like dumped by WhatsApp voice note, doesn't he?
He's kind of he sees what's going on, but actually what happens is right at the moment where actually he's taken out the big boss, and what he's absolutely expecting now is a load of infighting, huge loss of command and control amongst the Orks, where he can actually go in and kind of clean up, sort things out, but somebody arrives in system.
And who arrives?
Now it's time to queue a Ark of Omen, the Unhallowed. So, commanded by the Black Legion Demon Prince, Haralak. You have a go, Dan.
Well, you sound like you've got something stuck in your throat. Anyway, our boy Big U turns up.
Yeah, and, Big U, the Soul Eater. Yeah,
Big U. He's a demon prince. He's got a crew, and it's the usual kind of mishmash of Chaos Warbands. Not sure whether they're all fighting for the same thing. Some of the narrative talks about them going off and doing their own thing once again. I mean, being a chaos warlord must be so frustrating, like guys, just like, you've got some word bearers in your crew and they just like go off and start sacrificing people and doing their little rituals. You're just like, guys, just, you can do your rituals later. We've got to find the key fragment.
Yeah. Yeah. Herding cats, isn't it?
Yeah. Herding very aggressive cats as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We do get teased because the Night Lords get mentioned, but we don't really get to see them in action, or they're not described in action anyway, but they're all part of this this Bale fleet that comes in. So we do actually get a little insight here, which I don't think I've mentioned before, but Vashtorr is installed in each of the arcs a collection of psychers whose whole role is they're kind of aligned, I don't know what you call it, but their job is to be able to sense where the keys are.
Oh yeah, I can't remember whether we had that before, but specifically on this one, that they did have that, but then they all went a bit wibble, and effectively Big U, the Demon Prince, has kind of just got to like scour the planet sector by sector looking for the fragment.
Yes. So actually, I've jumped ahead a bit there because what happens is the T'au are about to deal with the Orks. Chaos turned up. You're going to get smashed in the middle. So they make a run for it to a planet in system. But this planet has certain significance because it's a dead world, I think the phrase is. So it's for the T'au especially, it's a forbidden planet, and it's actually the planet. It's called Archthamolok. That is the original encounter for Farsight, where he found his sword, where he found his desire to be this kind of all not all guns, but all fighting combat beast that he is. And when he was there last time, they kind of accidentally opened a portal on something called the Great Star Dais. And out of it became these demonic creatures. So they kind of nuked it from orbit with plasma fire to try and shut everything down and then basically shut the door. But Farsight gets basically blocked into a corner. He's either fight the Orks or get sandwiched between the chaos as well. So he makes a run for this planet.
Arthas Moloch.
Thank you very much. And but he does send a messenger pod ship craft unmanned back to the ethereal saying, look, we're doing a good job here and we could do with some help. And there's a really interesting twist that he puts on it. So what he says is, if you come and help and save my people, because he basically sees this as a kind of it's going to be it could well be a final fight for him. He says he will surrender if the rest of the T'au Empire come and help. So he's kind of sent this desperate message, and he's kind of hoping. And the story is, he says, right, we're never going to beat all this lot in space. We're going to make planet fall. We're going to scatter, guerrilla warfare, and we're just going to hold out long enough for the Empire to come and save the day.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, but basically his plan is to bring all the enemies to one place, and I think then use the Star Dais altar to summon demons to kill everyone. Is that right?
I think that becomes his backup. He's kind of like, if it gets that bad, we'll do that. But ideally, using all the skills and technologies that we have, is we'll try and draw Orks on the planet towards chaos on the planet and try and get them to fight. And we'll just kind of hit and run where we can. But what we can't do is we can't let anyone find the dais. We've got to protect that.
Yeah, because he wanted the solution to not be the dais. That's right. So he says he knew the location of the Star Dais, and he theorized he might be able to unleash the Molochites upon his unsuspecting foes. He viewed this as a horrifying strategy of last resort.
So what we see a whole range of fights going on, and we lose at least one, if not more, of the 8. One of which is so badly damaged that they kind of have to put the pilot into stasis and hopefully get him a new suit at some stage. But during this time, we definitely see Farsight kind of become more driven to get in the fight, and not just in a leadership kind of way that he's always been known to take the forefront, but I think even he sees in himself this kind of anger. And it's anger that he's in the position. It's anger that he's not getting help from the T'au Empire yet. And I think he starts to lose a little bit of self-control.
Oh yeah, he's definitely kind of succumbing to some kind of chaotic urges. And he's still having these visions of him wielding this big chain axe. So yeah, it's quite interesting because T'au and chaos it's not really a thing that happens, is it?
No, because they can't use the warp. They are kind of neutral. They're kind of not immune to it, but they have no connection to it at all, do they? So
Yeah, so it's interesting to see, Farsight be affected in this way.
Yeah.
So that's when Alnvar, the kind of the big boss, ethereal, kind of sends his little drone back, and it's just like, nah.
Computer says no.
Nah, I'm not having this. You've been a right dick to us all. I'm not helping you out now. It's kind of what he says.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that, and it's that kind of, for the greater good. For the greater good, you're on your own, chap. It really is that kind of thing, and that definitely feeds into Farsight's anger.
Oh yeah,
and that pushes him basically, especially as his forces are slowly getting kind of whittled away. They can't escape every ambush. And meanwhile, the bad guys are beginning to see a pattern in where he will stand and where he won't stand, and began to see there seems to be this sort of northern region on the planet where they're kind of fighting back harder, or they're definitely not retreating from. And he kind of ends up revealing where the dais is, doesn't he?
Yeah, by defending it in certain areas, defending certain specific areas well, and not doing it in other places, it kind of leads the enemy to where the dais is, doesn't it?
Yeah. Meanwhile, up in orbit, the what's it called? The missive, the
Bleak Missive, the Deathwatch ship.
Yeah. Basically, Vashtorr green lights them to get on with it, do their mission, and they absolutely take over the ship. I mean, I don't get a sense of how many there are of the actual Alpha Legion. It feels like there's a handful.
So it does actually say, out of the 34 Space Marines aboard the Bleak Missive, a full score were covert Alpha Legion operatives. So more than half. You got 20 versus 14. And because there's this brother turning on brother, they take over the ship pretty well, pretty quickly. And whilst the warriors that are loyal to the Imperium do kind of make a defiant stand, they ultimately lose to Lord Glass and his operatives. And it says, soon again, the Bleak Missive was burning full speed for an intercept with Arthas Moloch's atmosphere. By the time the Alpha Legionnaires escaped the doomed frigate aboard an armoured dropship, multiple Ork and Chaos warships had detected it and opened fire. As Lord Glass and his surviving warriors sped down towards the ruin belt and the armies battling through it, the Bleak Missive was blasted into blazing wreckage in their wake, and with it, any trail or record of their deeds.
Sneaky buggers.
Sneaky little so-and-sos.
Yes. That's another nice sort of kind of, we know what they do, but how do they do it? It's nice to get these little kind of actual, in action insights. So I enjoyed that part of the story. But so what they're after and what the T'au discover, but because they're doing these hit and runs and because they haven't got the time, there is discovered not too far from the dais a wreck, isn't there, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So once the Alpha Legion kind of jets themselves off the ship, they basically head towards not the dais where Farsight's having this kind of big last stand, and he's using the Dais of Blood's kind of blood sacrifice, rule mechanic, roll a dice and summon that many demons to defend yourself. So whilst that big scrap's going on, the Alpha Legion effectively sneak into an area where there's a mangled Dark Talon fighter craft.
Yeah,
and they effectively just recover the fragment in stealth and then disappear.
Yeah. But they just go standard operating procedure for any Ark of Omen. They go back to the Ark itself, the Unhallowed, and on board of which is the warp gate that every one of them has, and that allows them to speed jump back to Vashtorr, who's obviously filling out his Panini book of key fragments.
Absolutely. Get that shiny sticker on.
Yeah, exactly. Still at least a couple short. So and another example where machinations of chaos are that just cause a big fight, and when no one's looking, somebody nick in the back door, nick the apple pie, and leg it. Oh,
And meanwhile, the scrap is raging on, and Farsight kind of pretty much falls into this blood rage, and just when he's on the brink of, I suppose, like complete losing his mind, he has a moment of clarity, and he extracts his team away. So, and that's really the kind of end of it.
I'd say that's probably the most exciting bit, because he sent his ships that he had. They literally emptied everything onto the dead world. They scubaed off and hid somewhere else in the system. And basically, he just rolled the dice and said, "Come at me full speed. Send down stuff to come and pick me up. We're either going to do this or not. You're either going to make it through the ships in orbit and be able to come down and grab us, or you won't, or we won't be. We might be able to get there." And yeah, it was a big roll of the dice, but yeah, he manages it. He survives.
And then the sort of book kind of ends with them detecting life on this dead planet, and it kind of ends with this like really cheesy line of they find a little kind of green plant coming out on this planet, which is a planet that they've like effectively exterminated and burnt with plasma fire. Because someone's like, "Oh, Farsight, what's this?" And he goes, "That's just hope." Oh, it's cheesy as heck, cheesy as all heck, but fine.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe it's not super clear, but I kind of feel like his vision, him being tested, has he passed the test? And at least he knows exactly where he is with the rest of the Empire and the Ethereals. So yeah, I don't really get a sense that the T'au understood anything about the fragment or anything like that.
You and me both, T'au. I found this element of the narrative. Is confusing the right word? I'm not sure, but it just felt a little bit disjointed from the main narrative. Like the story is, and I know you can probably boil down, all Warhammer stories to this level of absurdity, but the T'au and the Orks are having a fight, and Chaos turn up and have a bigger fight with them all. But when no one's looking, the Alpha Legion arrive and steal the fragment and leave.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, and there's no kind of for me. It doesn't feel like there's a kind of big, like grand narrative arc that kind of supersedes this whole thing. Apart from it clearly being about a key fragment, and maybe that is. It seems a little bit disjointed. That's my view on this book in terms of the narrative. It's cool, like if you like T'au, and especially seeing Farsight, it's got some interesting snippets about him, and he's always been like in exile, but he's now super exiled. Yeah. And so you get a bit closure there if you're a Farsight Enclaves fan. But yeah, no, I just felt that this felt slightly disjointed from the main Arks of Omen kind of narrative arc.
I was kind of expecting Farsight to have a part of it, or he was maybe had a key element, whether it was his sword or. Do you know what I mean? If you said to him afterwards, "Hey, you're part of the Ark of Omen," he'd go, "What? A what?" So yeah, I think there are some cool scenes that you could definitely go away and do some narrative play with. The big canyon fight, maybe the fight through the workshops after the super weapons. I think there's definitely bits and bobs in there. But yeah, I think probably the weakest of the books. And I think in some ways, because it's happening on planets and on dioceses and stuff like that, there doesn't seem to be particularly many ship-bound fights. So when we go into the rest of the book, where we are looking at rules and missions, which are all boarding patrol, it doesn't kind of match so much for me. That makes sense?
I think there's a little reference to some orcs jumping onto the Unhallowed at some point.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
But apart from that, this is very much a more traditional 40k battle, and therefore seems slightly disconnected from the kind of boarding patrol type actions that you get, as you say, in the back of the book. But it does also have multiplayer rules.
Yes,
which is interesting.
which fits in nicely because obviously we had three lots of people fighting in the story, so that's a nice fit. I think that works.
And it has a new style of boarding actions. If you're playing boarding actions and you're enjoying that, and this is called the Dark Depths missions. Deep within the heart of these ancient vessels are unexplored areas, twisted and altered by their journeys through the warp. The rules presented in this section provide a new way to play, representing two rival warbands coming across one another in these strange and dangerous sections. And these are half-sized mission maps, so each requiring only one of the two game boards that are found within the 40k boarding actions terrain set. So if you've got like one of the kill team boxes with these things, then this is a way to play even smaller games, like a smaller terrain wise, but you'd still use the same size boarding patrol.
Yeah, it's going to be fast and furious, isn't it?
That is going to be pretty intense. But I thought that's quite cool. That would probably play a bit quicker as well if you're trying to get a game in over lunch or something. I think it's really interesting. And again, you've got all the rules for the various factions. I think we've seen, not to steal the sandwiches from the next episode, but we have seen that stratagems are going to be significantly streamlined, and I think you can see that from the way they're presenting the rules here in the boarding action rules.
Yeah, and we have had confirmation that boarding action, as it stands here, will be playable within 10th ed without there being changes. So this has been all written with 10th edition in mind. So if you think, oh my God, I've just invested in these books, playing boarding actions, and they're going to be useless when the new one, that's not true. You're all good to go. And again, we've got indexes coming. So yeah, I think if you're enjoying boarding actions and enjoying the story, then you can keep playing that all summer and onwards. So that's good.
Happy days. So there we have it. That's the quick run through the penultimate Arks of Omen book. Not a huge amount to talk about because some of it is just kind of starting to repeat. We don't want to start reading you all the rules from the back of it. There's other content channels that go into the rules in a bit more detail. And yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed that little run through of the narrative that is presented in this book. And we look forward to talking all about the new reveals in future episodes. And we'll also discuss the Arks of Omen Lion book when it gets released.
Excited for that.
Very excited.
Well, basically, it's the last book. So we're going to find out, do they make the Uber weapon? Do they get enough key fragments together? Don't they? What does it do? What doesn't it do? So, yeah, we're ready for the big finale. Season ender.
Absolutely. Right. You can find us at AOTI40K on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, we are continuing to upload this stuff to YouTube, where you can listen to our podcast episodes there as well. Until next time, keep calm and crusade on.
Cheers, guys.